Well, hello there. Hi, how's it going? Karyn Bryant here. Welcome to kind of a special edition of the MMA Heat podcast. As you can see, my co-host Alan Jouban is not here with me today. We know there's a lot of things going on in this world, and unfortunately, actually, Alan had a death of a friend, and seeing that and everything going on with coronavirus, we just weren't able to do this together today. So, of course, Wade and I, our heart goes out to Alan, and for his loss, it's really tough. And of course, we know a lot of you are dealing with the coronavirus as well, and hopefully nobody you know and love has been lost. But we hope that you stay safe out there. But the point of this is that I am an anchor for the UFC, and I was in Brazil for the UFC Brasilia card. And as we know, this was historic. This was the first time that the UFC has done a show where we had nobody in the audience. It was a really a very strange week. And if you had any questions about it, which I imagine maybe you did, I figured right now I could do a live chat and kind of answer some of those questions for you and just kind of tell you what it was like. So I got home last night, though. I don't even know where to start, right? The week was very strange going into it. I left on Wednesday morning to get to Brazil, and had a flight through Miami, and then I was going Miami to Brasilia. So when I left on Wednesday, I still thought that this week, I was going to London. And I still thought that all was going to happen. And initially I thought, okay, well, we got there. We knew, I can't remember the timeline of exactly when we found out in Brazil that it was going to be doors closed, but it's because, the government there had said they were limiting everything. So
you said right when you landed.
Yeah. So we found out that there weren't going to be any fans in attendance. So that was one thing we were like, well, this sucks. It's Brazil. There was obviously so many Brazilians on the card. And whenever you can't go to a show in Brazil and not have a crowd. That's the whole point. Some of the most passionate people on the whole planet. So going into that, we kind of knew, all right, well, this sucks, but at least we're still going to be able to do this show. And, there's so many Brazilians on the card, and some of the guys were even from, hometown kind of Brasilia area. And we're definitely sad that they couldn't have their countrymen and their family and their friends in attendance. There were specific rules about how many people could even be in the building. So if you saw on my Instagram, I posted a picture of the arena. And the way that we had our ESPN desk set up, it's a kind of a whole sports complex, and there's a national soccer stadium, and there was the gymnasium that we were in. There's also this kind of gymnastics area that Dan and I had our desk set up in. So we were already outside the building anyway. And we thought, oh, hey, now that there won't be fans in attendance, maybe we'd be able to have the desk right down by the octagon, and that would be kind of cool. But the reason we couldn't do that, there were actually rules about how many people could be in the building at a time. And there was basically a 100-person cap on how many people could be in the building. And so when you take into account the fighters, the people in their corners, the officiants, Brendan and Michael definitely had to be in there to call them, and camera people and all this kind of thing. So the number actually gets eaten up pretty quickly. So Dan and I never even made it into the arena on fight night. I didn't get to go inside there at all. We had our own kind of talent area, and we were where the fight teams were coming. So for those who don't understand how this worked, because there was such a limit on how many people could be there were only 8 fights at a time that could come into the building. So there were 7 fights on the prelims, I think 5 on the main card, right? So that's 12. So at any time, there had to be fighters in transit from the hotel, and they couldn't all be in the building at the same time. So I believe everybody got their hands wrapped at the hotel. It was about a 10-minute drive over from the hotel to the arena. So people would get a lot of their prep done over at the hotel, then come over. And like I said, so we had our locker rooms and our talent room were out in this building. So at any time, you could see some of the fighters, but not that many. And to be honest with you, it was hard. I would see friends of mine. You still see your friends. Hey, my God, I haven't seen you in a while. And you have a very natural instinct to go up and hug your friends, or at least, high five, how you been, whatever, after the fight. And it was interesting because, if I'm being honest, a lot of us still did, maybe we were a little bit whatever, but it was hard to undo a very natural feeling of greeting your friends, and especially when we know Brazilians are so animated, and they're just they're passionate people. They like hugs. They're friendly people and stuff. So it was kind of weird to have to adjust your behavior, and we all were definitely thinking of it. But I will say that I never felt in danger, and I didn't feel threatened by anything. And yes, we used a lot of hand sanitizer, and yes, I washed my hands a lot. The one thing I did say, I did most of my makeup myself. They had a woman there that was helping me a little, and I did ask her to wash her hands before she started with me. And that's the one thing that got me a little bit nervous. But like I said, I did most of my own makeup anyway. But for the lot of people were criticizing the UFC and saying, I can't believe you're even still putting the show on. And as we know now, at the time that I'm doing this, just a few, maybe an hour or so ago, it did come out that we are officially canceling the London show, or postponing the London show, the Portland show, and the Columbus show. So there was talk that maybe some of these were going to get moved to Apex, or they were going to, there was a lot going on. For a long time, there was the idea that London was still going to happen. It's just that London maybe was going to be without fans in attendance. And of course, now we know that that's all shaken out. But up until we came home on Sunday, we still thought that maybe the London show was going to happen. It was starting to get kind of dicey, though. So I know I'm kind of jumping all around a little bit, but I will say, so anyway, my point was this, that people were criticizing the UFC for still even having these events. And when you're there and you're actually speaking to the fighters, they all really want to fight. And I know a lot of people, it's a tricky thing. They want to make their money. They want to fight. That's what they do for a living. They're passionate. They trained. They're ready. They don't want to waste this opportunity. Everybody was already there anyway. So I think it would have been terrible for us to be, all of us down in Brasilia, and then for them to say that we can't even have the fights. So I'm glad that they did it with the doors closed, and it did change things. But, essentially the fighters all ended up saying that it was the same thing anyway, right? Once the door closes, it's just me and that other person in there anyway. And the only thing that was funny, if you guys saw, there's that clip, because you can't help it. Sometimes you're just your instincts. Like I said, you're used to saying things. And there's one point when Bisping is in there, and I forget if he was with Renato, Moicano, or what, but he's like, "Okay, everybody, make some noise," because after he'd won, and then they cut over because Mick Maynard was saying he was going to be the every fan, and then they just cut to Mick, like, woo, so I'm sitting there. But, so there were things like that you just naturally still want to say and do. So that did kind of, it was kind of odd. And then I remember Luciana was on my flight home too, and we're talking, she's a ring girl, and she said, yeah, after a while, at first they're walking around doing it because that's their job. And then after a while, even they were just sort of like, should we do this? Why should we do this? But whenever we saw, the fighters backstage and doing their interviews, the moment still meant a lot to them. But yes, it was tricky, and it was different for a lot of people, and it was hard for them to not have fans in attendance. And, it was tough. But at the end of the day, we still had some great fights. So I can pause and see if there's any questions here. I don't know if people want to talk about the actual fights or more about the experience. But it was weird. So yeah, on Thursday I found out, well, I should back up those. And so on Thursday I found out that I wasn't going to be going to London, though. So that's when I found out that, yeah, it might still happen, but we weren't going to go and do our desk shows there, which sucked. Because then at first I thought, okay, even if the show gets canceled, or says that there's only going to be no fans in attendance, we still need to go there and do the show. So I was still looking forward to this because I have known Tyron since like 2010 or so. We are good friends. I have known him a very long time, and I was really excited to work this comeback fight. Leon is amazing. This was going to be a killer fight. I was there in the O2 last year. That's when Bisping got inducted in the Hall of Fame. Like, I have incredibly great memories of working that show last year in London, and I was so looking forward to going there. Besides Tyron, there's a lot of great people on that card that I was looking to see fight in action. And like I said, I just had such a good time there last year that I knew it was going to be great. I know. I already said that. Yeah. So I was already really looking forward to going there. So on Thursday, when I found out that I wasn't getting to go to London, I was pretty bummed out, pretty disappointed. And then we found out, though, like I said, that the whole thing got postponed now. So I think it's the right thing to do. The thing that's tricky too is, even if I was willing to go, which I definitely was willing to go, I am not one of those people. I'm not afraid of catching it, knock wood, and I believe I'm healthy, that even if I did get it, I would be okay. But of course, I don't want to be a carrier. I don't want to pass it on to other people. But I didn't have that fear of going there and dealing with the situation. The hardest thing for a lot of us on production and everything was willingness to go places and things like that, but not knowing if you could come home. So as I was sort of joking with my bosses, I was like, look, I've seen LA. I don't mind getting stuck in London for a while, but last year it was freezing cold, but I've seen LA. But of course, my family is here, so it would have sucked to be all the way over there, and then you find out that you can't come home. That was also then the concern, right? So the travel ban comes on, and people don't know where they can go. And some people were thinking, well, maybe we could go from Brazil and go right to England from there, because there weren't the bans yet on who could come from what part of the world into what airports. But logistically, it would have been a nightmare for anybody anyway. So there's a part of me, like, selfishly, that's like, I didn't want to miss that show, and in a way, like, I'm glad it's, like, we were joking, like, it should all get canceled now since we don't get to go. But I feel so bad for the fighters and for everybody who makes a living, myself included, that don't get to do this now. So it's a problem, and the sacrifice that all the fighters have made is really something that we can't take lightly, and it sucks. I don't know what's going to happen in terms of if they get show money and stuff like that. That's not, I don't get to make that decision, obviously, and I don't know how that's going to play out, but it sucks. So yeah, there's a couple questions. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I don't know if there's any questions yet, or you want to just if there's questions on that, or I'll let you know about the fights. Okay. So anyway, I don't know what people thought about the main event. It was pretty spectacular, I thought, 3 rounds worth. Charles Oliveira is somebody that I have been a fan of. I really wish I could remember the first time I ever saw him fight, but there's something about him that I just always just thought he was awesome from the very beginning. Just his style, his obviously the submission prowess, but there's something about him, I don't know, it's like all the angles on him. He just looks, there's something, I don't know what it is about him, that it just is so interesting to me, and to see him fight is always really entertaining. But going into this one, I definitely thought that, Kevin was going to give him a good fight, and we knew that it was going to be, sort of wrestling versus jiu-jitsu, and Kevin was talking about really not being intimidated to go to the ground with him. So if you saw in those first couple rounds, though, Kevin definitely had to do a lot of submission defending, and he did so at a high success rate, and I think also was able to get off some of his own things. But of course, when it got around to the 3rd round, and Charles ended up getting that guillotine, and Kevin tapped, and then as soon as Charles let go, Kevin was able to keep going again, and so it was definitely, the blood is lost to his head, and comes back, and so he really didn't know what happened, which is unfortunate. In that situation, though, Charles Oliveira broke his own record, which was the submission record in the UFC. He had 13 coming into this fight. Now he has 14. He's also now tied with Cowboy Cerrone with the most finishes in UFC history. That's at 23. This guy is on an absolute tear. Going into this one, I think he was ranked number 12, and Kevin was ranked number 8. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Charles in terms of the movement there. He said he's ready for the winner of Khabib and Tony, which at this moment, we don't know if that one is happening yet. I don't know if that's the cursed fight, if that's the one that everybody really wants to see and hasn't been postponed yet officially by the UFC. So I don't know if that'll happen, but, Charles is saying he's ready for that fight. And he makes a hell of an argument right now. I don't know, there's obviously a lot of other people in front of him, but I have a feeling it's going to be incredibly difficult for Charles to be getting fights. I don't know who's going to want to submit him to say yes to him, because not only does he have all these submissions, but before this fight with Kevin, I believe his last 2 fights were knockouts or TKOs. So at this point now, he's been focusing so much more on his striking, and you really don't know, you got to pick your poison with Charles, and you don't really know where you're going to go with him. So I have a feeling it's going to be really difficult for him to start getting people to answer the phone and say yes to him as he tries to make his climb up. Personally, though, the fight geek in me one day would love to see an Oliveira versus Tony Ferguson. To me, that kind of fight is so entertaining. I would just love to see that. But I'm curious who you guys think you would want to see Charles fight next, if you have any ideas on that, who you think might be a fun matchup. But that's what he's hoping for. I don't know how realistic that is, but hopefully Charles gets some good fights. Afterwards, I did see Kevin at the airport on Sunday morning when we were leaving. And, he's definitely disappointed. He's definitely bummed out. He knows he missed weight, and obviously he knows. And that's on him. He wasn't, making excuses for it. I will say this. This was a hard week for everybody. And going to a foreign country to fight is always hard for guys and girls to cut weight, when they're out of their usual surroundings anyway. And with that travel, it's always different. With the amount of stress going on this week, it was different. And, while we all moved forward thinking that the fights and everything was going to go on, truly, we really didn't know. And I can imagine that has played on some of the fighters' heads as they were trying to cut weight. It definitely was hard to stay focused. It was hard for me to work on my scripts and everything. Even though you're thinking about your job and you got to do this, we're all human still, and we're all interconnected to the whole entire world. So there was there were times during the week when, I'm writing my script or I'm studying my stuff, and I'm like, oh, there's kind of more important things going on right now. But at the same time, when there are so many important things going on, it's nice to have this release, right? So it was nice to have something to focus on. But regardless, Kevin wasn't making excuses, but it was a hard week for everybody. So I asked him, though, I said, hey, maybe you can get back in business quickly and, kind of shake off this loss. And Kevin actually said, no, I think the problem actually was that I came back too soon already. So he had that Gregor Gillespie fight before, which was incredible, and he had that great head kick knockout. And then he was saying that he thought, maybe he should have actually waited longer between that Gillespie fight and the Oliveira fight. So he actually said he's going to take some time and rest and get things together. So maybe don't look necessarily for Kevin to jump right back into action. It was the second fight that he did with the people up at TriStar. And, sometimes with a team, it takes a little while to find your groove. I don't necessarily think that Kevin looked bad. I mean, yes, he needs to make weight, but I don't think it was necessarily that he was looking bad in there. I think Charles is just really, really good right now. And Charles has figured out whatever he needs to figure out to get things going, but that man is just on a tear. So for Kevin, it sucks, and it's a real bummer, and it's a setback. And it's tough too. Dan Hardy, I was working with him this weekend, and we were talking. Kevin Lee is kind of that poster boy for that new weight class. And so it sucks. He's small for a 70. He's big for a 55er. He's that guy that is that 60, 65 range that would be ideal. And unfortunately, we don't have that weight class right now. But guys like Kevin, guys like Paul Felder, I'm sure, we could all make a list of people that would be really well suited. Maybe a James Vick, even stuff like that. People that are suited in that weight class. So I don't know if it'll ever arise, but that's what the takeaway was there from Kevin. Definitely not looking to get right back in action. Going to take some time. And Charles, though, he's just ready for whatever, but feels very confident that he could take the winner of Khabib and Tony. So some questions?
We got a little Snoop, longtime viewer.
Okay, yeah, this is Wade. Everybody piping in here because it's easier for him to read the questions than for me. So what's up?
He thinks he would love to see Charles Oliveira versus Renato Moicano.
Ooh, Renato Moicano versus Charles Oliveira. But see, I don't like the Brazil thing, and we can talk about Burns and Maia in a minute. But I mean, the Brazil thing is tough. But yeah, that would be good. Renato Moicano, as you guys saw, if you saw that fight against Damir Hadzovic, he got a 44-second submission. Renato, this was his first fight up at lightweight, and formerly a featherweight. And this guy has got a really great, a lot of experience. So yes, he's lost to guys like Aldo and Brian Ortega, but his fights with Cub Swanson, he lost to Ortega in the third round. But Renato was very good, but kind of had a little bit of a tough run at the end at 45. So he wanted to try something out, something new, moved up to 55. And he's not a small guy, so it must have been hard for him to make 45 before. Came out, had a 44-second submission of Damir Hadzovic. And if you guys saw, they were kind of going at it with each other after, and it was really weird. He said something like, I came here to fight. He's like, I wanted to fight more or something. And it was almost like he was mad. Hadzovic said something like, well, then you shouldn't have submitted me in 44 seconds or something. It was really kind of weird that they were jawing at each other afterwards. But I thought Renato looked great. I mean, obviously in 44 seconds, how much can you really take away from a fight? But for him at 155 pounds, I thought that was a great announcement. And yes, Hadzovic is not a big name person, but I think with Renato's prior experience and the strength of schedule that he had before and this kind of a victory, I think that, yeah, he should be asking for big fights, and I think he's ready for him. So maybe something like that could be interesting in Moicano versus Oliveira. That might be fun. Yeah, that might be fun. I don't know. Any more questions?
Then there's some conversation about... Oliveira versus Tony.
Yeah,
and Tony's 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, how it'll hold up.
Oh, no, I mean, to me, that's the Geek Fest fight for me, because both of those guys are great strikers, and they're also obviously great at Jiu-Jitsu. They're just so creative, and I just feel like... And it's funny because those are two guys that I really like watching. So that is definitely my kind of style of fighter that I find very entertaining. So I hate though, I both love and I hate the idea of those two fighting each other, because I would definitely geek out on that, but I would hate to see either of them lose, really, what it come down to. Yeah, that's how I feel about that one. But I'll watch any Charles Oliveira fight. So, yeah, that's how I go. So now who we got over there? Oh, that's the Moicano one again?
I got Maia.
Oh, okay. So Gilbert... Okay, we're getting up some footage here now of Gilbert and Demian. So that one was really tough to watch as well. Again, yes and no. Grappler's delight, and we know that these are two of the best jiu-jitsu guys in the whole UFC. But I really didn't like the idea of the two of the greats going at each other and them both also being Brazilian. And I did actually wonder, had there been a crowd, how that would have played out. Like, who would they have been cheering for? You know, obviously Demian is a legend and Gilbert is also a legend in the jiu-jitsu world. And there was a lot of talk about a changing of the guard type of thing and whether or not Gilbert was going to be the person to kind of carry on that mantle. But as we saw in the fight, it was a TKO. You know, there was a lot of us who really wanted to see them exchange more. And to be honest, I thought Demian was winning the fight originally with his submission attempts, and I thought that he was winning. But obviously Gilbert landed that hook, and, you know, he said afterwards, it wasn't that he was celebrating so quickly, right? Demian went down, and Gilbert put his hands up and was kind of hoping that was going to be a walk-away knockout. So I talked to him after. He told me the reason he didn't pounce, you know, he really does have a lot of respect for Demian. And he said because there was no crowd in attendance, he could really hear everything, right? So he said he could really hear how hard Damian's head hit the canvas. And that didn't feel good to him. So he didn't want to have to jump in there and pound on him more if he didn't have to, because he knew how hard that was. But then, of course, he said he looked up and the ref hadn't stopped it, so he had to go in and do the follow-up shots. You know, Demian, always very classy in his interview with Heidi, and he says he still could have fought and thought he was in the fight still, and doesn't necessarily agree that it should have been stopped. But, you know, he's very classy and doesn't ever, you know, make excuses, and he takes it for what it was. But Demian hasn't been finished in a fight since 2009, and we've seen him get, you know, banged up, but he hasn't been finished since 2009. So there is a part of me that would have, you know, you want to see Demian go out the way Demian wants to go out, but at the same time, it did look bad, and it didn't necessarily look like it was going to get better necessarily. We know Gilbert is a very powerful guy, so I'm cool with the way that it ended. I mean, in terms of stopping it sooner than later, that's what I mean. Also, you know, Gilbert was talking about having that moment, though. You know, we talk when people are fighting a legend or fighting somebody that they really respect. And he said, yeah, there was that moment at the beginning, like, oh, wow, I'm actually standing across from Demian. And so he did have some hesitation at different times during the fight. Demian did say he wants to do one more. Hopefully the UFC lets him pick who he wants to fight. I'm not sure who that would be, but he did say he wants to do one more fight. You know, coming into this one, he was on a 3-win streak. A lot of people like to say, oh, Demian, he's 42, he's old, he's watching. He is 42, but he had won 3 fights in a row prior to this. So there is still a lot in him. And remember, the last one was over Ben Askren. He submitted Ben in Singapore. So I'm looking forward to seeing Demian do it one more time. I don't know who it's going to be against. I have some ideas who they might want, but that's for them to say. So, but for Gilbert, you know, Gilbert then, knowing that Leon, so while we thought that the London fight could still be happening, but Leon did say he wasn't going to be able to fight, because when there was talk about the fight being moved to the Apex in Vegas, again, with the travel things, Leon said, look, I can't do this fight. I can't go over there because myself, other coaches on my team, a lot of us are fathers. We're sons. We are, you know, we are family people, and they couldn't take the risk of not being able to get back home, which I totally understand. So anybody out there calling Leon any kind of whatever names for that, I think you're insane, because that seems 100% reasonable to me. But Gilbert is one of the people who threw his name into the hat. Obviously, we know that Colby talked about fighting Tyron as well, and maybe that would have happened. It would have been interesting to see Tyron and Colby go at it. I know Gilbert got in there and said he would have fought Tyron as well. But after his own win, Gilbert actually called out Colby, and that'd be a fun fight, because Gilbert wants to, you know, not only just defend Brazil, but and it was funny if you saw that part where he was on the mic and he's like, yeah, Colby, and this and I will beat you up, because he remembered he was on ESPN and didn't want to swear. That was kind of a funny moment. But yeah, Gilbert versus Colby, I think would be pretty cool. Colby versus Tyron at some point, I think, would also be great, but I really was looking forward to seeing Tyron and Leon. So I'm just bummed that we're not going to see that. But overall, you know, the whole thing being postponed, again, you know, there's a lot of people on that London card that I was definitely looking forward to see. I know a lot of us were, so it sucks that it is not happening. Any questions?
A comment that, you know, Americans fight each other all the time.
Right.
So there shouldn't be an issue with Brazilians fighting each other.
I know, but I don't know why it just seems different. I don't know why it just seems different. Because Americans, like, here we're divided over a lot of stuff, right? People are divided over which chicken sandwich is better, right? So even though we're unified as Americans, we're a lot more used to having differences. I don't know, when it comes down to the fight game, Brazilians always seem much more of like a cohesive unit to me. I think of Brazilian fighters as a more cohesive unit than American fighters. I don't know why. That's just how it feels. But of course, when American fighters fight abroad, they all walk out with the American flag and we're all like rah rah rah. But I don't know. It just seems to me the Brazilians are a little bit more of a cohesive unit. But that is a fair point. But like I said, America's a place where people just seem a little bit more divided all the time anyway. So, yeah.
We got a question. Where was it? It was. Did you have any interactions with Amanda Ribas?
I love Amanda Ribas. This girl, yes, I did. And she is such a joy. This girl, this woman, I'm such a Ribas fan. The first time I met her a few fights back, her manager, Alex Davis, had told me, he's like, no, this girl is special. She is this, she is that. And, you hear that from managers all the time. You're like, yeah. Then I met her. She has the most infectious energy. She is the sweetest, the biggest smile. She's all smiles. She's all positive energy. And then when you see her fight, she's a little badass in there, tearing it up. She's formerly a judoka. That's how she kind of really got her start. But, she defeated Mackenzie Dern. She's now 3-0 in the UFC, and she is doing so well. She was supposed to fight Paige Van Zandt. Of course, poor Paige, heel up Paige, her poor arm just keeps getting re-injured, so that fight didn't happen. So Randa Marcos came in instead, and Randa has a ton of experience, way more fights in the UFC than Amanda. And just, we know that Randa's a really tough girl, and she can grind it out, even though she's sort of consistently inconsistent. When Randa's doing well, she's doing really well, and she's a tough woman to beat. So Amanda knew she was going to have a hard fight ahead of her, but she did get it done. I saw her afterwards. She is just the most positive energy ever, and she did still say that she would love to fight Paige if that fight could still materialize. If not, she also mentioned wanting the winner of Michelle Watterson and Carla Esparza. Of course, that was supposed to fight. Those two were supposed to fight in Portland. That's now postponed. But I also like that. I like that Amanda is ambitious. I think she is right to be ambitious, and I think that this is a young woman that people in the division should look out for. And for her to fight Michelle or Carla, the former champ, Michelle, a title challenger, she's got aspirations, and those are realistic. I think this girl. The ceiling is, I don't even know where. A lot of talent, a lot of promise, and just one of the most likable people on the roster. My goodness, what a great girl. What a great girl. Speaking of likable, Brandon Moreno. Okay, so the assassin baby, a.k.a. McLovin, also loved this kid so much. So this was a big fight for him up against Jussier Formiga, who, so when we look at the picture, okay, so we know that Davison Figueiredo beat Joe, and Davison messed up and didn't make weight, so he's not the champ. So when we looked at the rankings, it said Davison number 1, Joe number 2, Jussier Formiga number 3, and Brandon was number 5. So Jussier Formiga, though, is the only one who has beaten Davison Figueiredo. So when we look at the MMA math, right, Formiga's the only one who's beaten the uncrowned champ. But Joe has beaten Jussier Formiga twice. So that's a little confused up there. But Brandon Moreno then comes in, beats the number 3 guy, and now makes a compelling argument for a title shot. And I agree with him. I know that there is talk that maybe Joe and Davison will rematch. And I understand that, Davison not making weight was not fair. Then also there was that headbutt, which caused a big problem in the fight. So I understand that there is a valid argument for giving Joe a rematch. On the flip side, though, I think there's also an incredibly valid argument for giving it to Brandon Moreno. Like I just said, he beat Jussier Formiga, the guy who has a win over the quote-unquote champion right now, uncrowned champion, overweight champion. But Brandon's an exciting guy. If you see the pictures with me and Dan Hardy where I have a hashtag Ride the Chaos, that comes up from us talking about Brandon Moreno. We were talking about in the fights when he scrambles the way he is. Like, he lives in that chaos, those chaotic moments, those scrambles, those in-between moments. He's got that Mexican machismo. He has just got the bite down on the mouth guard, go forward, just go for it mindset, which is so appealing. And the fact that he beat Jussier Formiga, who owns a win over the champ, uncrowned champ, it makes a very good argument. And I find it hard to argue with the idea, like, if Brandon Moreno was the champion, I think he would bring a lot of positive attention to that division. He is an incredibly likable guy, and that's not a judgment call on who else is likable or not. But this guy is incredibly likable. I just think he would be really sellable. I think you can't. I used to see Brendan a lot because when I would do UFC Now in Burbank, UFC Ahora was also recording right afterwards. So I would see him a lot. And he is like, he's that little brother that you just want good things for. And he's just always so positive, always got a big smile. He's got a couple of kids of his own. He's just great and a hell of a fighter. So I would actually be really cool if he got the next title shot. I know Jason House's manager is going to be blowing up the phones for Mick and trying to get that happen, but he makes a very, very good argument. If not, maybe he and Joe would fight if Joe didn't get a rematch and Davison waited. I don't know. It is a confusing picture, and I just really do wish Davison had made weight, and so that we actually had a real champion at this point. So I know it is messy, but I know Joe wants that rematch as well and has an incredibly vital argument for that. So I don't know what's going to happen, but Brandon Moreno is, I just love that kid. I just love that kid.
Got to give a shout out to Little Snoop.
Little Snoop
just threw us some money. So
all right, thank you for that. Hey, and while you're here,
and he also said that Brandon Moreno is definitely next for a title shot.
All right, here we go. Yeah, while you're here, I should say as a side note, hit subscribe. Usually on Mondays, I do the podcast with Alan Jouban, who is a UFC welterweight, and usually, you know, we're talking about all this stuff together. This is kind of a little different today, just doing a monologue and frankly getting tired of talking. But so, you know, if you've just finding this channel now, you know, Wade and I have had MMA Heat since 2007. If you want to go back and look around, we have like 1,700 videos. I don't know, a lot of stuff going back all the way to 2007. A lot of gym visits, a lot of, you know, events that we've covered, a lot of press conferences that you have seen. And the funny thing is too, a lot of these guys now that are, you know, champs or up at the top of the ranks, we have videos and interviews with them when they were at the very beginning. For example, with Joe Benavidez or something down at Mark Munoz's gym. Uriah Faber was off in the distance, like trying to help coach him how to do an interview. This was all the way back in 2011 or 9 or 10, I don't know, way back when. So there's a lot of really historic videos that we have here going back in a lot of time. So if you are in the channel, we also have an MMA Heat channel. But if right now you're on the Karyn Bryant channel, but if you just type in the names of some of the fighters that you like, I guarantee you will find some stuff with them on our channel. A lot of good things here. And yeah, so just subscribe. And you know, I don't know, maybe in the weeks since we're not going to have actual fights, try to do more interviews and people and more chats and stuff like that. It's going to be interesting to try to fill the time because I actually know that, yeah, I've got time off now. I may not be doing any fight coverage or anything in terms of with the UFC until maybe the Lincoln show, which would be Glover versus Anthony Smith. So like we said, the next 3 fights have been postponed. Don't know when they're going to happen. Also to be, you know, we don't know what's going to happen, right? The kid's home from school now. Her spring break wasn't supposed to start for a couple of weeks. They're home. I know a lot of us are dealing with that. You know, my daughter is 13, so she's a little easier to deal with in terms of us being able to still kind of do our thing and do her own thing. But I know for a lot of you with little kids and jobs and still trying to work from home, it's going to be really difficult. So I do feel your pain, and I hope it works out. I mean, best of luck for everybody. This is really strange times. And I think I'm going to start rewatching The Shield, though. That's one thing I was going to say. I was like, we have The Shield DVDs. It's my all-time favorite show. And as I was coming home on the plane, I was like, it might be time to rewatch The Shield and just go through all that. I get a little Vic Mackey in me and like just get amped up on like how to fight the virus off. I'm just going to go Vic Mackey style on this. Of course, our good friend Kenny Johnson's on that show, Walton Goggins. If you've never seen The Shield, now is the time. I don't know if it's on, it might be on Amazon. I don't know. I think it streams somewhere, or buy the DVD. It is the best show.
And speaking of Kenny, you and Kenny trained at Fortune Gym.
Oh yes, Kenny and I have trained at Fortune Gym before. That video is on the channel.
You
exactly.
With Kenny?
Yes, we've arm wrestled with Kenny. He's actually a professional arm wrestler. But yeah, there's videos of us training with Kenny Johnson from the Shield. He's also on SWAT now. He's on SWAT.
He just wrapped season 3.
Yeah, they just wrapped it today. Kenny's been in a ton of shows. Like, he's just such a great actor. But he will always be Lem from the Shield. That's closest to my heart here. Yeah.
So you got a new subscriber. I apologize if I mispronounced it.
Okay.
He's asking if you gave a shout out
to
Andre Addy.
Andre Addy. Hi. Welcome.
New subscriber.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to subscribing. Thank you. Thank you for subscribing.
Someone's asking if they can ask a tennis question.
Sure.
Go for it.
Go for it. Ask the tennis question. What's the tennis question? It's actually one thing I was curious about is whether or not I could be out on the courts playing with my friends, because even though I play full contact tennis, we actually don't touch each other, right? So I was thinking, oh yeah, maybe we could still play tennis during this time off. I don't know. Right now, the weather in LA, it is Armageddon-like, though. I've been gone, several days. Wade said it's been raining here the whole time. It is very overcast and strange here. So regardless, there wouldn't be any tennis for a couple days anyway. But what's the question?
God, what is this? Giggity FU.
Okay.
He said, Karyn was there for the hold on, I'm talking brother moment.
Oh, yes, I was. That's Tony and Verdum. Karyn started the hold on, I'm talking brother moment. Accidentally. Karyn takes full blame for that and always has. If you go back and look at that video of Tony Ferguson and Fabricio Verdum, we have a 360-degree view of this luncheon, right? So Wade has this 360-degree camera that we set down on the table. So you can pan around, you can actually touch the screen and, drag it and all that stuff. So that video, by the way, it's classic at this point, and I love both. You guys have heard me already, the first part of this, talk about what a big Tony Ferguson fan I am. Absolutely love this guy. And Verdum has been our friends. Verdum has been one of the guys that has been from the beginning with us in terms of MMA. He's been really supportive, just been a really good friend and everything. Like, we have done so much with him, and yeah, like, so he really. We kind of bonded with Fabricio at the very beginning, because when I started studying Portuguese early on, he was somebody that I would film with a lot and was always very patient with me. And it was kind of funny at the beginning, like, his English and my Portuguese were about the same level. So we would kind of have these stilted conversations, but he was always very welcoming. Same with Vanderlei and all these guys at Kings. It's also a reason why we're so bonded to the guys at Kings MMA. So anyway, Verdum has just always been a really good guy. Like, we just have a lot of fun with him. And like both of these guys. And so I really just on the side had asked Fabricio, no, he asked me. I think I asked him something like, "Hey, how's your meal or whatever?" And it is tough putting a heavyweight and a lightweight at a media lunch, where a dude who does not have to worry about making weight and somebody who certainly does. And so there's going to be some tension there anyway. And there is some backstory, I guess, between Tony and Verdum's manager, Ali Abdelaziz. So I think there might have been some tension there beforehand. But I literally was just asking, like, "Hey, did you get to eat?" or or "How was yours?" And he says, Fabricio, and we were trying to just be off on the side and have a little quiet conversation. And he actually was telling me too, we were speaking in Portuguese, he's like, "Hey, what's up with Tony? Is he doing okay?" Because basically, we've always gotten along, but he seems to be a little edgy today. And I said, "Yeah, I don't know. Tony's always really cool. I think maybe he's just cutting weight and, isn't feeling good about that. But yeah, I don't know, because I love the dude and he's usually cool." So that's really what it was. And for those who were like, "Oh my God, that dumb bitch started it." Yeah, well, I'm not a dumb bitch, but yeah, I already knew that partly my conversation had something to do with it. And if you look back on the comments, if you look back in the comments, I said it from day one. I was like, I think this might have been my fault and I'm really sorry. But regardless, it's an incredible video, and it is worth seeing, like I said, because you can kind of go around and see the look on all the reporters' faces and stuff, because you can flip it around and see what everybody was doing when that was going down. And it's pretty crazy. It has a lot of views, and it is interesting that that's going to be one of those videos that's part of history. The Hold On, I'm talking brother, but I mean, I have to say, in good fun. The Tony Ferguson type of guy things, some of those are hilarious, but he really is a great dude. And I know, like, people talk about, him being weird or whatever. He has always been so cool with us. And like, I've always said, he's the right kind of, weird for me. Always been a big Tony Ferguson fan. And I really hope we get to see him fight Khabib. That fight has still not officially been postponed or canceled or anything like that. But at this point, that's starting to look like the cursed fight. Like, it's crazy how many times they tried to make that happen, and this hasn't happened. And I gotta be like, there, you know, I know we're all like, I can't believe this is happening to us, and it takes a global pandemic to stop it. And I just hope people know that anytime I am making any kind of levity out of this, or you know, I made there was a picture of me and Dan the other day. And I said something like, if Corona didn't kill, I made just a little rhyme, and I said, well, but if Corona didn't kill you, tune in to UFC Brasilia. And someone was like, oh, that's insensitive. Look it. They call it what, laughing in the dark. If you can't try to find a little bit of levity in a really crappy situation, then I think you're already dead. So to me, trying to make some lightness out of this, but of course we know this is serious, and we know that people are truly dying, and I of course don't wish that for anybody. So that was just a lighthearted rhyme to say, hey, we're still here, we're doing this show. Tune in if you can. And I had a great time working with Dan. The guy's very smart, but you know, both of us had a lot of stress. He had to try to get back to England, not knowing, you know, what the bans were going to be. He thought still too he was going to be working the London show. Then there was also talk, because there was a Cage Warrior show on Friday night. There was talk of bonding the Cage Warrior show and the UFC show, because there was an idea at one point, what about all the fighters who are either in the UK already or can get to the UK? Maybe they could take some people from the Cage Warriors card and put those guys on the UFC card for anybody who couldn't come from the States or from wherever. A lot of Cage Warriors was going to air on Fight Pass anyway. So there was actually a lot of ideas of how to save that card and still make fights. And so I know that there was a lot of work on that. But of course, we know it is now canceled. But there was a real attempt to keep it alive. Yeah.
And for all the videos we're referencing, after this archives, I'll add them as cards.
Okay.
So they're easier to find. If you go back to the video, it'll pop up in the upper right of the video as a card.
Cool. Any more questions?
Well, the person asked about the tennis, let's see, his name is Mondad Doriban.
Okay.
And he's asking if you've ever read The Inner Game. It changed his game.
No, I haven't read The Inner Game. But I do know tennis is mental. If that's what you're alluding to, I definitely know that it is mental, and I don't know why I have a mental block with following through on my shots. By the way, I posted a video the other day. That was my warm up, right? Okay, so I was a little, hadn't played in a while, and then after I shared it, I was like, I'm better than this. Maybe I shouldn't have shared this, but whatever. But yeah. I don't follow through, which I know, and I don't know why. And that's my mental block. And I literally used to have a little piece of tape on my racket that I wrote the words follow through on so that I would see it and write. I don't know what it is. I have a mental block to that, but I'll look into that book, because tennis certainly is 100%, well, not 100%, but the mental part of the game is a big part of it too. So yeah, I'll look into it. Thanks for the tip. By the way, I'm bummed because I was supposed to be going to Miami later this month for my mom's birthday. I don't know if that's happening now, right? We all don't know. And we were going to try to go to the Miami Open, speaking of tennis. That's not happening. So yeah, honestly, I don't even know if I should go see my mom, who I love. And I don't know.
Another question to lighten the mood.
Yeah.
Giggity FU is asking, Karyn, did you steal Maxi Baby from Bisping? As Max Holloway's...
I created it. I started it. And me and Mike together at Fox, Maxi Baby comes from me first. And we said it together. I did not steal it from Michael Bisping.
Karyn is the wordsmith.
I am the word nerd. If anybody knows me, anybody who knows me knows that I'm the one who's constantly playing word games. I'm the big punny guy or whatever. And I'm the word person. So I wish I could point to the origination of that, but I guarantee you it was me and Mike together on the same show. So I don't know. But by the way, speaking of me and Mike together on the same show, we love working together, and I think you guys like us working together. So, you know, you can tell the powers that be that you enjoyed when, you know, I actually had a little bit of a reunion, a Tough Talk reunion, right? Because RJ, who played the troll in the troll booth, was working with us this weekend. Mike was calling the fights, but we were all traveling together and stuff, and we all hang out together. We're all good friends. So we had a lot of fun together, just the three of us, and like reliving old times and stuff, and we definitely have a lot of fun together. But Bisping and I, like, this guy, he's just, you know, Michael's crazy, and the best kind of crazy, and I mean that. I just adore the guy. So I hope that it comes around that we can do more shows together. That was the whole thing. Another reason I was really bummed about not going to London, because Mike and I were supposed to work the desk together in London, and last year at the O2, is when he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and I knew that it was going to happen, and he didn't know that it was going to happen. And so I have so many memories of that night. Like the O2 anyways, just absolutely amazing. Like I was so looking forward to going back there. The energy was incredible. And just knowing the whole day, I was like, Mike's getting in the Hall of Fame, he doesn't know. And so it was just really fun. And he just thought at one point, he's like, oh yeah, they're going to have me go down and, you know, do something octagon side. He thought he was just like going down to talk about some fights. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, cool, see you later. Knowing full well he was going down there and everything was going to change. So I just loved it. It was so fun. But Mike's so fun. So again, that was yet another reason I was bummed to not be going to London. And he and I were also supposed to work together on the Portland show with Chiesa. The three of us were going to be back together. So hopefully those do get rescheduled and we still work together at the desk because it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Back to the fight card. Knight 11692 is saying Johnny Walker is good, but his gas tank is really bad, and he makes a lot of mistakes. Yeah, Johnny Walker needs to get a higher fight IQ. Really, I think is just what it comes down to. And the thing is that's just going to come with time. Coming into like the last fight with Corey, right? Like he hadn't even spent like 5 minutes in the octagon total or something like that. He's won so many fights so quickly that, we really didn't have that much information on him. And he has gone up to TriStar. I think that's going to be a good place for him. But it's new. And like I said, even with the Kevin Lee thing, that it takes some time, to get established with a new gym and with a new team. But Johnny came out, had some moments at the beginning, and we know he's kind of wild and he's massive. The dude is huge, so much power and all this, but he's, still just a little wild. So for me, I'd like to see Johnny get some, just kind of maybe, you don't want to lose the wildness because sometimes the wildness is what makes you win fights, but needs to work on just kind of tightening up some technique there. And certainly the ground game we saw, there were some holes there. It's interesting though what you say about the gas tank, because a lot of the fighters were talking about getting really tired. And then we looked it up, and Brasilia is at some elevation. I think they said it's like 1,100 meters or something like that. So there is some elevation to deal with. And I heard it from a few fighters. They were talking about just getting more tired than usual, or more tired than they expected to be. So I don't know if that literally was like mental drain or physical drain from the elevation. It was warm that night. It wasn't crazy hot, but it was warm. It was probably high 70s or so. I didn't make it into the arena, as I mentioned, so I can't really comment on what it was like inside the arena in terms of how hot that was. But outside, we had some, maybe you guys saw my little Insta video. We had some fans, like some air conditioning fans and stuff set on us. So there was definitely, it was definitely hot. So maybe that did create some fatigue for the guys and girls as well. But yeah, for Johnny, I still think he's a very entertaining guy to watch. But, when you have your fights end so quickly, maybe you get overly confident and think you're always going to be ending fights quickly. I'm not sure. But obviously we know Faraz is a really, really great coach. And if Johnny decides to stay up there, I'm sure he's only just going to keep getting better. And Krylov has way more experience. And, Krylov had more wins than Johnny has fights, I believe, if I remember my notes correctly. So, I think Johnny's just still young. That is two losses in a row. Maybe that'll make him realize he's got to work on some fundamentals or something. I don't know him personally. I don't know, I don't know what he's like in the gym. I don't know how hard a worker he is, but I do know up at TriStar, that's a solid place to be. So I can only imagine we'll just see improvement from him. He, like I said, massive guy. The division is a fun division, so there's a lot of cool people for him to fight. But I think he'll be back. Any more? Might we wrapping up soon here? We do have one more here.
Yeah.
We had, let me pull that back up. I'm just making a graphic. So Irish Technical Theater.
Okay.
Irish
Technical Thinker, yeah.
He said, our boxing club is closed to no MMA this week in Ireland.
Yeah.
Deep cleaning. Anyone else experiencing this? Mm-hmm. And so I was just preparing the graphic that we got on all of our...
Oh, yeah, here in America, California, the governor put this out saying... The mayor, rather. So... Places are closed, restaurants are closed except for takeout. Gyms are supposed to be closed. Any place of public gathering is supposed to be closed. So, we're not going anywhere. It's funny.
And I was just going to say, what was interesting is we received this on all of our phones.
Yeah.
Text message. Everyone within Los Angeles County.
Yeah, it all got texted to us. And I know for this, he's in Ireland, you said, right? So Brian, who runs the Scottish team over there, I know he put on his Instagram, like earlier in the week, I know he had said something like, oh, it's only going to be open to the pros in the gym. And then later in the week, he had to say it was just closed, 100%. And I know that that's like what a lot of people are doing, right? So here in the States, so we have had some friends that had their gyms open still, and they were just trying to be hyper cautious about it and overly cleaning and everything. But now everybody's got to close down. So yeah, I feel like there's going to be a lot of online jiu-jitsu classes blowing up now and whatever. I gotta be honest, I personally wouldn't go to a jiu-jitsu gym right now, but that's just me. I was bummed that, we can't necessarily even go to LA Fitness. I feel like, if we all space out between each other on treadmills or whatever, but, what are you gonna wipe your hands down between every piece of equipment? So same here, we have a trampoline and we got streets to run on. So I have a feeling that we'll be doing that for our exercise and a lot of like I said, YouTube videos and things like that. It does suck. And it sucks. It sucks.
I don't know if you want to give any predictions. There's a question about
what?
Woodley or Covington?
Oh, God. Wait, well, I think Tyron would win that fight. Are you asking me who would win?
Yeah.
I do think Tyron would win that fight. I think that the Tyron that we're seeing right now, the Tyron that you see in these videos in Phuket, and the Tyron that is truly, truly hungry for his championship back, I think Tyron would win right now. And that is not that, look at Colby gave Kamaru a hell of a fight. He is a tough son of a bitch. But I think Tyron would win. That's how it goes to me. But, would be a great fight. I'm looking forward to seeing that fight one day, but I actually was more interested in seeing Tyron and Leon personally. Sorry.
Maybe we'll end on this. Last comment. Alec Cartier says, Karyn, hair looks great.
Thank you. I actually caught a little look at that. I was like, wow, look at that. I use Mark Anthony hair care products. It's great. But it is a little lion maney today, isn't it? Like, wow. I guess, I'm not going to lie. I'm feeling pretty good about it myself. We maybe need to go take new headshots, right? I'm kidding. But it is all mine and it is all real, if anybody is asking. There is no weave here. There is no whatever. This is all mine. And it's a lot of fun. Got me hella hot though down in Brazil. That was the thing. It traps a lot of humidity and heat and stuff in there, so it gets a little warm. But thank you for that. I appreciate the compliment. I do appreciate it. But all right, so that's about it. Probably this will be archived. If you missed any of it, you can go back to the beginning. It'll just be archived on the channel. But once again, you can subscribe to the Karyn Bryant channel where you're watching this now. You can subscribe to the MMA Heat channel. Also, we, of course, have, Facebook pages and websites for MMA Heat. And, on Instagram, I'm KB Heat. On Instagram, he's at Wade Eck. Or you can also do MMA Heat over there and stuff. So, like I said, I'm going to try to reach out to some people, see if people want to do interviews or what have you, and find some way to sort of pass the MMA time. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a lot, I need to clean the house. We need to clean the house. I'm not going to lie. Being at home for a little while is going to maybe force us to deal with some stuff around the house that we need to deal with. But I'm also a big fan of jigsaw puzzles. It's one of my favorite things to do. And I have one that is partly done, that I started, I think, over the Christmas break, and then I had to put it away. So I will be putting that out, and I'll be working on that. I've already cranked through a few books that I've gotten recently, so I do love that. But yeah, I feel like I'll be doing a lot of jigsaw puzzling, and I don't know. Having a good time with the family, but I'm not going to lie. I have a feeling we're all going to get a little tired of each other. We'll be cordoned off in little areas of the house because, you love them, but
I'll be in the garage.
Yeah, he'll be out woodworking in the garage, so that'll be fine. But
as a tip, I don't know how to say this username. Patchekuzskar67 something. It says Eddie Bravo is still teaching posting techniques on Instagram.
Oh, that's cool. Eddie, yeah.
Go follow him on Instagram.
Yeah.
Some new jiu-jitsu techniques.
Absolutely. But please be safe out there. Please make sure you do wash your hands a lot.
And Phil, whatever, we do have a PlayStation, and I'll be schooling her in Mortal Kombat.
Yes, he will, most likely, because I'm not very good at video games. Like I said, I'm the word nerd. He's the techie guy. So, but guess what? If we play Scrabble, y'all are getting effed up hardcore. They won't even play with me. They won't even. No, they won't. They won't play with Scrabble.
You have to play in Portuguese.
Yeah. Actually, that'd be for. Actually, yeah, I could write. Yeah. But anyway, Thank you so much for joining me now. And if you have other questions, I do look at these comments and answer people when I can and stuff. So again, hit subscribe and be safe out there. Hopefully, we can get through this sooner than later. It's going to be hard before it gets easy, but really do wish you guys, everybody out there, stay safe. And yeah, thanks for joining me today. See you later.